we're starting some more intermediate slash advanced features of the Design Wizard. What's going on, Sam? Welcome. So today we're just going to be kind of going through some more of the rhinestone features. So we'll start with a simple design like you guys have probably seen a few times with the live templates of how we can advance them with some, or enhance them with some some rhinestones. Then we'll get into a little bit more like you see here, just setting up an actual template or converting an actual template into it and saving that. Hey Belinda, welcome. And then we're going to actually go from one of our animal puns design and we're going to convert it entirely into rhinestones for a couple different ways. So we'll go through all the features of that. And then we also had some questions last week of taking rhinestone designs and converting them back to vector designs, so we'll try to touch on that too. And then if we have time, we can go into some other questions about the wizard and stuff like that too. All right, so again, if we have any questions on the rhinestones, I know that's probably we had a lot of questions on that leading into it, just seeing what we wanted to see more of, and rhinestones was the answer a lot. So if you guys have any additional questions, even if it's not a certain feature that I'm using right then, just let me know. And as I create the designs, if I can incorporate it or answer it, I'll definitely go ahead and do that. All right, so a lot of times with the live templates, you'll see us use the magic tab and we'll use the stone outline. So on a, you'll see this one a lot, but any of our live template volume 3s are set up pretty well like this, where we have like an actual vector clip art just kind of set up in the middle of our design, where with our stone outline button on the magic tab, we're able to take any design like this. Now again, with the live templates, we want to always go through and edit those first, but assuming we are done, we can now go in here, use the stone outline feature. Let's switch these to a darker stone. And it will just go ahead and drop our rhinestones right around our design like that. So doesn't matter, even though you can see here there's no way the stone's going to fit in there. Doesn't matter what layers the vector's on, just with the one-click button, we can go in there, add stones, and now we have a rhinestone or a multi-deck template with our design now. So what we're going to do is take kind of just a base template like you see here, and we're going to make it so the rhinestones are always there on the outside here and around our sports ball. So once we do that, we'll go through and save it too, just so that way when we're getting these, most of the time we would always add the rhinestones after, but in this case we're going to save this design as like a rhinestone live template. So you won't be able to change the size or anything like that, but we'll add the stones, we'll bring in the live text again, and then we'll resave it. That way this one's always ready to go if we wanted the rhinestone add-on. All right, so we'll go ahead and just start fresh. So this is going to pull from our TRW Live Templates Volume 2. Okay, so when I'm building, usually when we're building the template, we'd always, if we're just getting this design and adding a couple stones at the end, we would go through and get our design completely set up and add the rhinestones after. So we'd edit our text, break all the envelopes apart, everything like that. In this case, we're not going to really worry about that right now, because the main thing we want to do is set this up for as a live template, pretty much multi-deck design. So the first thing we want to do is make sure our design is sized up. So right now we're at about 9.3 inches wide, so that's pretty good. We haven't purchased. I can't see your screen, Cynthia. If anyone else is anyone else having trouble seeing the screen? Okay, so yeah, Cynthia, if you can hear me still, just sign out, sign back in, and usually that will fix that issue. Alright, sweet. Alright, so what we're going to do now is usually we'll go through, get rid of all of our envelopes, everything like that. Now in this case we still can, or except, so we'll go ahead and do that just because we do still want to leave our text here. That way we know where our stones are going to stop and start. So you can kind of see with our Southeast and 5A champs, we have that on a path here. So we'll go ahead and break that apart. And now with our Seminoles and basketball, we don't actually have any contours around that, so we should be good now. We're going to go ahead, I'm going to make this basketball just a little bit smaller. Just because I know it's going to, with the rhinestones, everything like that, if we kept it as big as we had it like this, it's just going to be a little bit too much. So we're just going to bring this basketball in just a tad for when we make our finished design. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and use the stone outline. And that's just going to add a nice rhinestone right around the outside of our sports ball. And it doesn't matter what we have in here right now. We do, for the most part, wanted a perfect circle. That way, when we switch this out with other, sports balls, it should kind of fit pretty nice inside there. Now, as you can see here, it already went through the text a little bit, and I only have a little bit of room here for maybe one more stone. So since, after seeing it, I'm going to hit undo a couple times. I'm going to make this just a tad bit smaller, maybe move it up just a little bit more, and then go ahead and use that stone outline again. So with the stone size, that's always going to be your drop down here. So we had a question about where you're getting your stone size. So that's going to be the drop down here. Again, mine says 0.135. Do we all know how to change that setting? So yours might say like 0.130. If you're using the rhinestone feature and the 0.130 stones work fine, you don't have to change it. If they're not falling into place a little bit, if they're having trouble falling into place, you can up the circle size just a little. This, you can see we're using about 0.135 now. But to change that, you can just click on this pen or pencil right here. You're going to select SS10. Fixed size is yours. It's going to say 0.13. You're going to switch it to 0.135. And then just make the variance right here one higher. And then make sure you hit add at the end. It should update your SS10. And then just come down to the next size, SS16, sorry. And just make this variance one higher than whatever number you had here. So in this case, we had 0.136. We're going to change it to 0.137. Hit add and save. And that will update your rhinestone size. So again, if you're having any issues, that's a way to fix it. But otherwise, you don't have to make that change if you're not having any issues with it. Alright, so now the next thing I want to do is this piece here is nice. It's nice in this design, sorry, because it's its own separate piece. It's not connected to anything else. If I needed to remake this circle, remember I can easily do it too by going to the ellipse tool. So if this blue piece was a part of anything else, maybe welded, I could delete that and then just remake this circle here using the ellipse tool. So just line that up. Once it looked pretty good, I can come up to the pixels here, or the line thickness, just make that a little bit thicker until it matches, and then convert that outline to an object. That's going to just make this just that thick circle now. And then all I'd have to do next is draw a rectangle through this. And to shape the rectangle, what we can do is we're going to convert it to curves. So we're going to right click, hit convert to curves. And then I can move this down to match this line a lot cleaner if necessary. So same down here. Then I can actually add nodes to get it to that same kind of angle it's at, because our text here goes down. So once I have that, that's just a rectangle going across now. And then I could subtract it through, so back minus front, and then I'd have my own new piece here. And the reason we might have to do that is because now when I drop a stone in here, you can see that it's a little bit close. So if you ever have to break apart like an inner circle like this or remake it, you can easily do it just using the circle or the ellipse tool, making the contour a little, or the pen line thickness a little bit more, converting it to an outline to an object, and then just using a rectangle or any shape to kind of subtract through it. So this way now we can manually just grab our piece here, make it a little bit smaller if needed, and that way the rhinestones fit in there a lot nicer. So no, so someone asked, do we have to change that out? No, the only reason I went through that is sometimes when we have our design, let me go back. When we have this like blue part here, it might be already welded to another piece. And the way the design is set up right now is I can't fit a rhinestone between these two lines here. So because this one's already broken apart, I'm able to grab this and just move it all in together. So now that I can fit a rhinestone through there. But sometimes you might have to break apart like the circle or the inside like that to make sure you're able to fit your own path of rhinestones through there. So we have a question: when do you convert to an object, and when do you convert to curves? So most of the time we're going to be using anytime you like draw a shape or a text or anything like that, to make it to go from like a text field. So let's just write out Seminoles. Once I convert this to curves, I can no longer edit the word Seminoles anymore. So that's taking it from like a font to an actual object. Now, with that though, you have an outline thickness on your design. So this black line, or these black lines you see, are actually just like increasing the thickness of the outside line. So to make that line an actual object, that's when you're converting it from an outline to an object. So if I wanted this purple fill, let's do gold, and then this black too, right now if I sent this to the cutter, all it would be reading is that inside fill. But as you can see in the preview here, and I can even make that bigger, we have that outline of the black. So to convert this outline to an actual object, that's when you're clicking this button up here. So now you'd actually have this as a piece, and then your Seminoles text too. So converting like an outline to an object, that's just that when you increase that pen thickness. And what we did with the circle is when we drew it around, we lined up the thickness to match. And then once we had that thickness, we converted that to an object. And now we're left with just that circle there. Does that help? No problem. All right, so next, to finish this one off now, we're just going to draw a circle, pretty much just like we did a second ago. This time we're going in the middle of our area here. And once we have that all lined up, we're just going to select that circle. We're going to go to our place and fill. We're going to do a path fill. And I made this color different just so we could see a little bit more. So my circle is off a little bit over here. So let me hit undo. And I'm just going to bring that in just a tad. And anytime in Corel we're making just a small movement, like if I have to bring this circle in just a little, if I'm zoomed out way out here, to make a small adjustment is really hard to do. So that's the smallest adjustment it's really letting me do there. So if you need to make a small adjustment, you'll have to zoom in more. And then you can just pull that out just a little bit instead of having that big movement like that. So the more you're zoomed in, the smaller adjustments you're able to make. So we'll go ahead and path fill. And then I'm just going to go ahead and clear my paths. So I'm just going to kind of clear out these stones in here. So we're just pretty much doing a couple manual deletes here. Now these lined up pretty good, so I don't have to really do too many adjustments. So I'm just going to highlight that area there, clear those out. And then just grab this area here and clear those out too. Now if needed, like if you have to drag this stone down a little to match up this line, or if I needed to drag this over to get a little bit closer here, I'm going to move just my first stone, and then that's when we'll do just a quick respace. So just about 6-7 stones in that path, hit the respace, and then that will ensure that, you know, it's up to that point where we wanted it. Yes, you could do one long respace, but it might just be quicker just to grab like 5 or 6, and then, you know, 5 or 6 on that side, and then respace it. But if needed, you definitely can. So like this one here, I'm just going to delete that one and just move that one over a bit. Respace. Same with this side. And then when we're done, we'll just select all the stones and make them one color. So when we use this stone outline button here, oh, thank you. You guys are on it. About 4 or 5 of you said it all at once. So at this point, whenever you have, like the first thing we did up here was that stone outline button. What that does when we're designing in any type of live template is if I click on the word Seminoles right now, or the word basketball, any of my text, you see how it's just showing me the nodes? It's not, I haven't done anything to the text to make it, I haven't welded anything together, haven't converted it to curves, anything like that, like manually, right? So anytime we're designing, and we might use this stone outline button, once we do that, it will manually convert all the text on your page to curves. So that's why normally, like the first design I showed you, it's still here. The first design, you would always edit it first and then add the stones. Because once you use like the stone outline button, you can no longer edit any of the text here. So if I go to find text, you'll notice nothing shows up anymore. And that's all simply just because we clicked that. When we have this sports ball here, I click stone outline. So what we want to do now is we're going to go back and open our template. So go ahead and open this up again. So I'm just going to go ahead and ungroup my design. All right, so now when I click on the word basketball or Seminoles, you see how we have the envelope box around it. So now when I hit find text, all the text fields will show up. So what we're going to do is bring our design back here. And I'm going to take all the text in this design. Go ahead and delete it off. And then this way I can grab all the text here. Now we're just going to slide it right over. So we had a question. So we're going to do the rhinestones. Well, in this case, normally we'd want to do the rhinestones last because we don't want to run into the problem of the rhinestones not, or your text being converted to curves when we add rhinestone. In this case, what we're doing is we're going to set this template up so that it's always going to have these rhinestones around it, and we can come back and still edit the text. So we kind of went, instead of, every time we want this design to have to remake the rhinestones, we're going to save this template so it always has the rhinestones, but we can still come in and edit the text. Looks like this might be attached to that, so if you resized originally, would you also resize the second template at this point? Yeah. So if you were doing this design in, for a kids or anything like that at this point, you would definitely want to resize it. So make sure you remember what it's sized as. So if, like the original, if we had that sized at 7.5 inches instead of 9, as soon as we open this, we'd want to resize it just so all the text would still fit perfectly rather than having to go in there and try to adjust it all manually. But yeah, that's a great point. So we're just pretty much borrowing all the live text from this design, bringing it back over. And now we can resave our template here. So now when I hit find text, you'll see all the text listed here under the find text. And now I'm going to go ahead and save our new template like this. And yeah, so we also had a question about, do you have to do this for every style of the template? So like you have the A version, the B version, and the C version. So no, once you had one done, we could just bring it to a new page like this. And pretty much just select one of the colors. Like let's say we just wanted all one color. So now I could save this as my one color version. And then most of the time, like our 3-color and stuff like that is using the text effects, like the 3-color live text. Well, even though this is already in an envelope, you can still add the 3-color look to it. So we might have to come in and adjust it a little bit. So now I can grab each one of these here, maybe just raise it up a bit to still kind of make sure it fits. But if you want to add any type of 3-color element to it or anything like that now, so you don't have to, make a version for each one, you can just quickly add that using the text effect. So any live text that there already is, and that goes for like any design. If you ever want to add just like a second color, so it's not just, the one color like that, you just hit apply to it. It's always going to have that same thickness, so you might have to adjust some of the contour settings. You might want to round off the corners, anything like that. But it's just as simple as just clicking on that design, choosing the preset effect you like, and then again just going through and maybe editing some of the features of it. But yeah, we can just go through here. Add anything just like that. So we'll do a 2-color on this one too. Round that out. Just a quick little adjustment, and now pretty much have our 3-color look. Sean, why do I get a box when I try to add a contour sometimes? What type of box are you getting when you're trying? Is it with the text effects tab, or is it using just like selecting a text field and adding like a contour up here? Yeah, I'm not sure why you just get a box using just the text effects. The only thing if it's possibly one you made, it just might be set up a little off. But if it's something like here and you hit apply and it doesn't give you a text here, it could just be an error with like how it was installed or something like that in one of the updates. So just give us a call and we might just have to do like a Corel repair or reinstall the wizard for you. All right, no problem. All right, so let's go back to our design here. All right, so this is the one with the live text. So now, of course, if you want to edit any of the color scheme or anything like that, you can do that in this window or at this time. But again, it doesn't really matter at this point. All this can still be changed. So we're going to go to File, Save As. We're going to go to our Templates tab. So again, I already have mine saved on the side here to make it really easy. But otherwise, this is the path you'll have to use to get to your TRW Live templates. So I'm going to go down to the pack that we pulled it from. So TRW Live Templates Volume 2. Go ahead and scroll down till I see it, because these are all numbered. So I'm going to select the number here, and instead of the word C at the end, I'm going to put rhinestone Hit save. So now anytime I want to use that, we can go to TRW Live Templates Volume 2. Scroll down, you'll see the rhinestone version now. It'll pull in already to the correct setting. Hit find text, and then we can go ahead and still edit any part of our design. Is it 5A? Oh, 5A wasn't showing up. I might have converted this one on accident. Let me see. I might have welded the 5A on accident. Yeah. So I'll redo that with the save version. It just might have not. I've either converted it or welded it somehow. But that was supposed to be live text too. But everything else will still fit perfectly. You can change up the sport. Still change up all the clip art. Oh, I'm in not my clip art folder. So again, that can just switch out just like that too. I can't find that pack on the site. Do you think it's called something different now? I believe it's TRW Live Templates 2. Just remind me at the end, and I'll try to pull it up just to see. But it should be on the site. Alright. And the really cool thing with anytime we're using rhinestones is this template, when we go to cut it, when I have just my rhinestone template here, this never changes, right? So it doesn't matter what design I put in here. It's this pattern of rhinestones are always going to fit in here. So with that being said, I just have to cut this rhinestone template one time and just save that. And anytime I use this design again, I know that the way it's set up right now, if I use this file, I can put any text inside there and this rhinestone template's going to match up. So it could be soccer, baseball, basketball. You know, as long as we use the circle clip art up top here, it's going to fit in there nicely. And I only have to cut this pre-cut one. So every time I redo this design, I'm not cutting a new rhinestone portion. I'm only cutting the vinyl section of it, and I have this ready to go. So if you're ever doing like a tournament, excuse me, anything like that, and you have some pre-made designs, if you want to accent them with rhinestones, well, now I can have like, you know, 10, 15, 20 of these pre-made, and on site, if they want to add rhinestones for, you know, an extra $7, $10, whatever you might upcharge, well, you can just add, you can already have these pre-made, just throw them right on top of the design and press them afterwards. And, you know, with the $7 to $10 upcharge, we probably have, what, about 40 cents worth of stones in this design. So that's why with rhinestones, especially with little live templates and stuff like this, if we can ever just do a quick accent with rhinestones, especially like a pattern that we can reuse on other ones, it's really useful because you can, you know, with the, even with a small little circle one on most of them, you can upcharge just $5, and again, you have 40 cents worth of cost. All right, so any questions on our first design? Yeah, I'll give you guys, someone asked if you can have the one color version as well. I'll give you all three. I'll do like a 1, 2, and ABC kind of version. And I'll make sure I fix the 5A at the bottom too. But yeah, so you'll pretty much get 3 designs with that there. All right, so now what we're going to do is use the different rhinestone features. There we go. To kind of recreate our design here. So this is from one of our animal puns pack. What I did was kind of make like a single color, so we'll start there. Then we'll add like a second color and just kind of mix it up a little bit. And then more of like a full fill. And if we have time, we can do the body too. But we'll kind of see that the two color here I think looks a little bit better anyways. But we'll kind of go through those different settings of how we can easily set a design up like this. Okay. So again, first thing, anytime we're using rhinestones, we just want to make sure that our design is set up with the appropriate height and width to start out with. So these are kind of more like cute animal puns. They're meant to be a little bit smaller for, you know, kids shirts, stuff like that. So the way it's set up right now is about 5 inches wide, but almost 8 inches tall. So that's a pretty good setting right there. So we don't really have to change this around too much. So we're just going to kind of start with our line here. And now there's a couple different ways you can start like with a rhinestone design like this, but I'm going to show you kind of just like an easier way for me to kind of go through it. A lot of times what we'll see is stuff like us trying to use maybe the island fill, where we set this up with, you know, maybe an inside fill, 0 islands, and then we go to click on our lion and it gives us like an error. All right, and then it might try to fill it. Sometimes it might give you stones. Other times it gives you like little fills like that. So essentially what that's telling us is that this is too small to fill rhinestones in. So the next part, what you could do is, if you wanted like a full design, is to possibly come in here and use like your smart fill and then just kind of slowly start filling up these edges around here too. So we're going to take it a little bit different way. We're going to try to use some more basic shapes and stuff like that, and then a lot of the fill between, and towards the end we'll use some actual like island fills and stuff like that. Alright, so we're going to grab the ellipse tool and we're just going to draw kind of a circle around our lion like this, and let's try to make this color stand out a little bit more, like that. What is this red easier for you guys to see, or I could do like a green? Bright blue like that. Okay. Red. All right, we can do red. All right. So what I'm doing here now is, in order, and this is another part with like converting an object to curves. This is another good example. So right now I drew this circle out. Well, right now I can only control it so much. So I can bring in the sides, I can pull it down, but if I want to extend this area out a little bit, it won't, like if I double click, it's not showing me the nodes of my design, right? I can't like control the sides of it or anything like that. Once I convert this to a curve, it's making it more of an object. And now when I double click on it, you'll see the nodes. So now I can double click and it'll add a node here for me. I can double click over here and I can add a node for me over here. And now I can adjust these lines using these arrows too, if needed. So to have more control over it and actually shape this the way we want to, we're going to have to add a couple nodes, so we're going to convert that to curves. Now it's always like an object already before that. So you don't really, you're not going to hit this convert outline to object or anything like that. We're just converting it to a curve, so we're able to, edit the nodes, add nodes, and make this shape exactly how we want. And one other thing too, we don't really have to use it in this case, but have you guys ever tried to like adjust nodes and you turn this arrow this way, but it affects like how this side looks too? Like all we wanted to do was just kind of adjust this side, but when we do that, it automatically adjusts the other side too. Do we know how to fix that so it only adjusts one side at a time? So up top here, you have this button called Custom Node. Yeah, Irv, you got it. So when you click that, it will allow you to just adjust one side of the line. So you can see when I go up and down this way now, it doesn't do anything to the other side of that line. So if that's needed, that's just, you'll have to click, double click so you actually see the nodes, and then it's just up top here. It's not showing it now because I don't have it selected, but it's going to be right up here, kind of more towards the left side. All right, so we're just trying to get this line set up again. It doesn't have to be like perfect, but we want it pretty accurate going around the outside here. So you can see that line now. So once I have that set up, we're going to go ahead into our place and fill, and let's switch my stone color. We're just going to hit path fill. So really quickly, it's just going to add stones all around my design. Now it still is on a path, so we're going to go ahead and hit clear paths. That's going to break that line apart, and that's just going to leave my stones behind. All right. Also, when I'm doing a design like this, if I'm ever like retracing a design with rhinestones, I always like to lock my image or my vector. It might not be a vector clip art, it might just be like a regular image, but I always like to lock it. And that's because like anytime you might be designing and you accidentally click on the background, it's going to move it. You're going to have to, hit undo a couple times, but it can happen quite frequently when we're using, especially like rhinestones and stuff like that over top of it. So if we select our design, right click, and right here in the middle you'll have this lock object. Now if you accidentally click on the line at all, unless you double click, it'll show the lock button, but now it won't accidentally like select your design and move it for you. So now that once we have that set up, we're going to go ahead and do the next shape. We're just going to kind of size this up. All right, and then I'm going to convert to curves. Let me make that red so we can see it. Right click, or the shortcut again is Control Q. So double click to add a node. We're just going to kind of drag this down here. So you can adjust this, how the shape looks too, by pulling on the arrow. So I can kind of drag this arrow down a little bit this way, and you'll see how it kind of follows that line a little bit nicer. Bring this in just a little bit here. So that looks pretty good. So we'll go ahead and path fill that. And I'm actually we're gonna add some stones down here. So I think I'm gonna raise this up just a tad. I think that will help get a stone in there later, yeah. Is there a visual cue about what type of node it is? They should have different shapes, but is there something you're trying to do with them or anything like that? So let's go ahead and we'll clear our paths here. So with the cuts button, pretty much you'll just use that when needed. So like, let me go back. So if you're ever designing and you're trying to move this arrow this way, but it's moving this bottom half too much, changing too much of the shape, that's when you can just click on it, click the cusp node, and then you can just adjust one side at the time. So you only need to do that like pretty much when necessary, kind of thing. So go ahead and path fill that and clear path. All right. Now for our circles up top here, you can do it two ways. If you like just to do the basic shapes that we've been using, you can kind of draw a circle in there, and then you can actually come up to this arc. You'll have this ellipse tool. You have three different shapes. If you do the arc, it's only going to fill a portion of that circle. So what you'll need to do though is manually adjust that. So it can take a little time, but you can just drag this in, or you can manually change it. Let's try 240. That's still not enough, so then I can go 220. Still not enough. Let's do 185. That's a little closer there, and again, let me make that red so we can see it. So this ellipse tool has these three features up top, and this is just, again, you can draw, and I'll do it on the other side. You could just draw a B-spline in this point, but if you want to make it, just using the ellipse tool, you can do it that way. Path fill, and then while it's on that path, I'm just going to kind of raise it just a tad so it's not actually excuse me, touching those two stones there. Or of course, just use the B-spline. Start a little bit out because it's going to drop a stone there anyways, and you can just B-spline it just like that, and then path fill. Alright, so whatever's easier, and then just make sure we hit clear pass to get rid of those. And then the inside part here, we would just manually drop maybe 2 or 3 stones like that just to fill that area. So just a copy, manual drop kind of thing. All right, so the next part, where we have these lines, we can pretty much just drop a stone like this if necessary. So in this line, they didn't really match up that well, so I'll just drop 2, edit, fill between 2, and then, of course, clear our path. So since we have a couple of these to do, like these ones line up pretty well in the line, so I'm just going to select those 2, fill between. This one I would just manually drop a stone. These ones line up pretty well, so fill between. This one's a little too close, so I'm going to drop 1 stone out of there. Fill between 2. And these ones I'll just kind of manually do. Maybe pull this out just a tad so that fits in there. Fill between 2, minus 1. Fill between 2. Probably take 1 out there. Manually drop 1 there. And then fill between 2 there. So you can see on not every line I did it exactly the same, just because I thought it would be a little too close to this stone here. So I just moved it over a touch there. All right, and then, excuse me, at this point we want to make sure we highlight our entire design because we just did all those fill between and clear path. So you can either do it all at, just one after each other, or you can do it all at the end. I think I'm going to move these ones down just a tad so there's less room between each one of them. Alright, so the next part of our design, we pretty much have the inside fill here. So this is kind of just like the beginning. If I tried to do an island fill like this, it's going to give me that error that this is too small of an object to fill. So we're just going to kind of manually grab some stones and we'll make a couple copies. And I'm just going to kind of manually set these up. Just like this. So with the eyes, I'm just going to fill them just like that. And then for the bottom here, I'm going to try to make it so I have a little bit of a gap in there, kind of like the image. So I might have to move these stones around a bit. But I'm going to purposely kind of drop down a little bit lower there. And then I'm just going to kind of manually fill just that area. I'll try to center it up with the shape here because that will help. And then just one stone this way, one that way, and then we're just hand placing on this line for this part because again it's going to be too small to do any type of like autofill. So this is where we're just going to manually drop a few stones on this line. So highlight this. So sometimes when I'm designing, I'll kind of just pull it over like this just to kind of see where I'm at with our design. So that looks pretty good so far. Go ahead and put it back. Now with his body here, what's nice about this design is it's pretty symmetrical, and honestly the head was too, but I kind of liked, I wasn't too worried about this part being as symmetrical, but here it definitely is. And just to save time, what we can do is we'll just lay a couple stones out on this line. And we're pretty much just going to do half of our design. So instead of the fill between two, I just put 3 stones down here. And I'm trying to get enough, like, sometimes you might have to put like 4. Just so you can see the curve in the line. Once I do that, I'm going to use the respace. And then up on the arrow until I like the fill between each stone. Go ahead and I can delete that line out. This part here, I'll probably just do a manual until I get to about there. And then again, I can do pretty much the same thing. And then just delete that line out. So drop a stone in here. This part, if you want to, you can use the respace tool, but it's probably a little bit easier just to manually place these ones. Just because at this point, to get the look of how the paws are, as many curves and stuff as they have in it, you'd have to already place quite a bit of stones to get that look. So you might as well just pretty much hand place them at this point. Something just like that, and then I'll just go up this line here. So once we have that half done, we can just highlight that section, make a copy, flip it, and that will fit in there just like that. Alright, so any type of design, anytime we have like a, you know, even like this, like I said, the face of this design was pretty symmetrical. Some of those dog heads, like if you ever wanted to convert those into like a rhinestone design like we're doing. Those are great for decals. You can kind of do it similar this way too, where you just do half of the face, save you a lot of time, and then just copy that and just mirror it to the other side. Sometimes you might have an overlapping stone or two, but with the, the merge or the mark bottom or top overlapping stones button, usually you can fix that pretty quickly. Alright, so with the tail, we'll just grab our B-spline. And we're just going to kind of go up the tail here. And I don't need to go all the way. You can see I ended the line pretty much like that, because if I go all the way, I'm gonna have overlapping stones for sure. And if you make like a B-spline like this and you want to go back and edit it, you can always go back and edit any of the nodes that you've already dropped. But yeah, I don't want to go all the way, because if I go here, it's just gonna have overlapping stones. So once I lay that line out, path fill, and that looks pretty good like that. The only one we'll have to move is this top one here. Just make sure, turn these back to orange. And then with the inside part here, normally there's no way to get all the detail in the tail, so instead of having all of it, I'll just have like one line kind of going like that. So go ahead and grab him, scoot him over, and just like that, we have a nice little lion rhinestone design. So this here is itself just under about 5 inches wide, so that's pretty solid there. It could be used at this point, it could be used as a decal, it could be used just as just a part of a shirt. We're gonna finish this one out, but now pretty much we can use this design over and over. Could you use baby bling for this design for a young child? Yeah, exactly. You could use the baby bling. Or let's see if we do this real quick too. Let's grab our original, hit unlock. So that's there now too. Create a boundary. So let's see how this looks too. I'm gonna put move that to the back, and then glitter. Looks okay. I was seeing if we just added an outline real quick, if how that would look if we did like a little glitter rhinestone decal too. So that doesn't look too bad like that, but you could use possibly white on the back side too, and that might even look better. Yeah, I think the white and orange look a little bit better. But I'll show you how we did that real quick too. I didn't think of it until now, but yeah, that could definitely be used for a little bling anything decal. We can put stones on glitter. So the only time we can do that is when we're using the bling anything to make when we're using the bling anything, we apply the glitter to that, then we can add the rhinestones on top of it. If this was for a shirt, we could not set it up this way. We would get rid of the glitter backgrounds. Try gold. Yeah, that doesn't look bad either. You could mix up the color too. We could do like a black stone there, or black. Turn these black. And then maybe an orange there. So we could try it a couple different ways, but just an easy way that you could take any like little rhinestone design like that and make it a little decal too. So especially with like the dogs, it'd probably look better. But yeah, I'll go. So let me go back and just show you how I did that too. So let's get all these stones back to normal. And then we had our design here. And if I did that though, we would want to kind of line this one up probably right on this line, just so it looks cleaner. So we had another question about pressing stones on top of glitter vinyl. So we have a material, the Bling Anything, that allows you to, when you press your design into that, you're able to make like decals out of rhinestones or glitter vinyl. So by applying your design onto the Bling Anything first, and then like, so if you had glitter vinyl, press that to the Bling Anything, and then your glitter, or then your rhinestones on top of that glitter, that in that case you can directly press the stones onto the glitter. But if you were doing that like on a t-shirt, it wouldn't work the same. Eventually those stones would fall off. So when we're doing it like this, we're thinking of it as a like glitter, like a multi-deck rhinestone decal. All right, but to get that, what I did was I selected our main vector here. Oh, that's a rhinestone. So this piece here. I created a boundary to the outside of it. Now, if you didn't want it completely filled, you could just do a contour tool without the boundary. And that would fill it like that. But there's going to be some areas that might be filled in too much. So, yeah, I don't think that's going to look that good. So what I did was a boundary first. And then a contour from that boundary. You can go ahead and right-click that. Break apart. So now we have this layer here. We're going to move it to the back. And then remember we have that original boundary still there too. So we want to grab that and hit delete. And that's going to add that second color to it. So now I have that gray and then the black here. So once you have it set up like this, now you could make that, you know, any color in the background. And then that could be glitter too. And then I could make my stones all orange. Change this back. So whatever combination, you know, makes it stand out the best, you can kind of play around with it. But whatever color here you want to have the stones the same color. Deselecting that background and making this black. So whatever color stone, you'll see the black on top of the black now. Press to which side of the Bling Anything? So the Bling Anything, you're going to press this shiny side up. Alright, so I'll leave this here just so we have that ready here too. Now, I'm going to just go back to flat colors though, just so, remember we don't want to save in glitter. So I'll have it set up like that for us. And in this one, we can go ahead and get rid of that. Alright, so next we have our beast mode. Now again, normally, we would try to take a rhinestone design or a rhinestone font we have and try to, stone it out or pick something that matches. But in this case, we don't really have a font that looks like this. But I just want to show you too how we can, any font like this we can stone out. It just is going to take a little bit more time. So to stone this one out, let's just grab a gold stone, and we're just going to drop one. And from there I can make copies off of that. So I'm just going to kind of line this up on the bottom or on the back side here, drop one, and then of course we'll just do the fill between two, clear the path, make a copy, and then this one here I'll kind of manually place, and then I'll try to just kind of manually place these ones up top here, and I'm just going one by one. But what's nice about this letter B too is, again, it's kind of, the top part is going to match the bottom pretty well. So I really only have to do half of the B like this. Once I have it pretty much set up, we're going to make a copy and then just kind of flip that over and line it back up. So any of these ones that might be close together, we're just going to kind of merge them or nudge them manually. And that will help setting up some of these letters a little bit quicker. So with the E we can do that, with the A we can do that. The T is going to be pretty easy anyways, but with the M we can do that. Pretty much almost every letter here we're able to, make part of it and then just make a couple copies, which are going to help us, save time when we're recreating a design like this. So up top here, just kind of set these up, fill between two. This one, it kind of goes a little bit further out. So what's cool about when we use the fill between two, I can still manually move all these, and you'll see how it adjusts the stones. Now it won't add more stones once you do that, but it will keep the spacing the same between each one. But remember, we need to hit clear path. This is really important with rhinestones too. Anytime we're using like the fill between two, it's very important after you, like if you're ever designing, one, I would just get in the habit of saving pretty frequently when we're designing with rhinestones, because trust me, it's gonna happen. You're gonna do a fill between two or a respace, and you're gonna forget that you did, and you're gonna forget to clear paths, and then you're gonna highlight like part of your design to change the color, and you're gonna go change the color to something else, and it's gonna freeze your Corel and pretty much crash it. So for some reason, if you don't fill, like when you use a fill between, if you don't clear your path and you try to change the color to it, it just 9 times out of 10 will crash Corel for some reason. So we always want to make sure when we're designing with rhinestones, a couple things, always, even if you're not sure, it doesn't hurt just to highlight your design and hit clear path. It's not going to hurt anything. And then two, just, save it at the beginning, and then every so often just come up here and hit that save button. And then if not, and also you want to make sure under tools and customization, your save tab is set to 5 minutes. So those are all going to help you when you're rhinestoning, because trust me, it will crash on you, and it's just usually because we forget to hit that clear pass. We had a question. How do you decide which way to start the fill when filling a letter like this? You started the long way of the B, and then the E, you're going this way. Honestly, I don't think I really think about it like too much. Like I don't think I did it on purpose or anything. I just started at a point. Most of the time it really won't matter too much. Now, like when it gets to the A and the M, I will do some certain stuff first, and I'll kind of show you on that one. But otherwise, I'll show you that. So, but here I'm just gonna you know, fill between here. Make a copy, fill between here. And then once I have those set, I pretty much just copy these here. Flip that and copy that there. So it's just kind of how you see it. There's no really, you know, right or wrong way to do it. But yeah, someone even mentioned with the E, you could have copied it and flipped it a different way. But yeah, so whatever you find easier, like if I just took the top here and did it all the way across each one and then filled these two, that's perfectly fine too. So whatever you find easier when you're doing these letters, you know, just go with that. But on this one, I'm definitely going to set up the bottom part first, because with usually when you're mirroring a design like this, I'm going to try to already avoid the problem where these two need to be merged together. So I'm going to try to set these ones up first as close as possible, and then my lines up here, and then I'll just do a fill between there and a fill between there. And now you can see how these are touching, so I might have to move this one just a tad, which this one might end up being combined anyways. Once I have those, I'll go ahead and delete them. Grab both of these, clear the path, grab it, mirror it. So yeah, those two are going to get kind of mirrored together anyways. So I'll just delete one and then just nudge it just like that. Yeah, so, and then if needed, I can even come in and bring these down a little bit too. So when we do anytime we had a question about the row moving with it when we use that fill between. So yeah, let's say I have a design like, or a row like this, and I'm a little bit short, and I go fill between, and it gives me a design like that. I can still grab any of these edge ones and move these around, and the rest of the row will follow it. Now you can't like move any of these ones out of line, it's just the top or bottom. But once you hit clear pass on that row, they're all manually, so you won't be able to do that anymore. All right, so here I'm just going to drop a couple stones. I'll just do it like that. Yeah, it's because it's still on the path at that point, so it'll move with it. All right, so with the S. Now with the S, what you also could do with this is one of the few times that you could actually probably get away with using that offset feature that we don't use too much. So I could just draw a line here kind of towards the bottom of my S, go to fill between, do two islands, outside, offset. So outside moved it to the right, so I'm going to hit undo, inside. So I'm just grabbing this line here. Oh, I hit island fill, I want offset. Seeing something else? Move that over, and that usually fills that pretty good without having to run into any extra lines there. Now with the T, we'll just go across, edit, fill between two. And then just pretty much just copy all the way down. And that's good like that. All right, so let's go ahead, remove the word beast, So we can kind of see our design now. That looks pretty good like that, and it got the text pretty well. I think I'd probably move this line in just a tad at the bottom. I don't like the way that E kind of looked. And that's just one thing too, whenever we're doing designs like this, you don't have to be, I always like to kind of move my background away or move my rhinestones off it. Sometimes when we focus too much on the actual design, when we pull it away, the rhinestones don't look as good. When we have that background to it, it always looks a little bit better. But when we pull it away, we can really see what it's going to look like in just the rhinestones. So if one you're designing, kind of look at that too. Just something as simple as that E being kind of pushed off. You try to follow, especially like the text, like here. Let me bring it back. Like if we try to follow how it goes wider up top here, you might have your stones looking like this, but then when you remove your shape behind it, it just looks kind of awkward with that S now. So we want to follow it, but we also want to make sure our rhinestones look good. So I'm going to nudge these ones in just a tad too. Nudge those just a little. So that looks a little bit better that way. Alright, so we'll finish with the mode. Again, I'm going to kind of line these up first. This is another one where it's almost like 3 stones thick, but it goes into 2. So instead of everything else is like 2 rows, so I'm not going to try to change it much. We'll bring this in here a little bit. Fill between 2. Fill between 2. Again, clear the path. Move this one over. I'll just kind of do a couple manual ones here. And then once I have about half of that done, just make a copy, flip it, and then I'm just going to line up those center ones. So these ones here, if possible, I can maybe nudge them, get one more here, and then these ones in the middle, just delete the overlapping ones. Alright, with my O here, I can do 2 things. I can draw just kind of like a circle. Actually, instead of drawing a circle, I'm just going to fill the inside with the Smart Fill. Make that a little bit smaller. Go to my place and fill. Do 2 to the outside. This time I don't want my my contour to auto because it's going to go way off. I'm just going to do it right on that line. Island fill. So because I did a Smart Fill, one of the shapes on here is kind of, when it goes to the top, it's sending one way out top here. So that's not going to work. So instead, we're just going to draw the ellipse tool like we normally were. Kind of adjust that to the top and bottom. Bring that in a bit. And now I can do the island fill. And that looks pretty good there. So that's one way to just save some time with like a circle or an O like that. Here we have our D, so we'll go ahead and finish this off. Just make a copy. See if we can get 2 rows. Yeah, I think we'll be good there. So I'll put 1 to here. And then we'll just kind of manually nudge those ones up. Select this half. Flip it. And that error was just because I think I had it a path still that I didn't ungroup, so, or it didn't hit the clear path. So sometimes it'll just give you a quick error like that where it doesn't actually crash it, but other times we want to be careful because it can crash it. I'll just adjust this just a bit here. Now with the E, even though it's a different size, I can still grab most of this E here, lay it down, and just take 2 off there, 2 off there, 2 off there, 1 off at the bottom. But before I do that, we're going to move this row up. So I'm actually just taking these 2 off, and then I'm just going to nudge this middle row up a tab. Clear all that away. Let's get rid of that. So I'm just pulling this out just a little bit because the O didn't fill out like I wanted to. So I just pulled it out from the sides and I'm holding shift. So it's just pulling out the sides here, right? So if we're looking at my stones, you can see how stretched they are now, right? So this is where we get in the difference between the resize and the replace rhinestones. So if I hit resize, it's going to make my O look back to normal like that, right? So when I stretch it out like this, I want to hit my replace, and that's not actually going to adjust. It's not going to change any of the dimensions. It's just going to change the actual. You'll see how they go from those oval shapes back into perfect circles. All right. So for this part here, you can do it a couple ways. You can manually just do a fill between and then just kind of keep moving it. You can draw a B-spline through here yourself. Now you want to make sure that you're pretty much holding the V key when you're dropping all these lines, because that will ensure that they're the nice sharp edges instead. And then we just, of course, make a copy. Get rid of this here. And I just added a little bit extra room. With rhinestones, it doesn't hurt to do that. Clear those out. And now we have our beast mode design. So here I can have it a couple different ways. I can make it, an all 1 color design. I can have it a 2 color like this. I can have, I can switch it around. Now, the next thing I did was fill this area up top here. Okay. So this kind of around the main here is actually pretty easy. What we can do with that, I need to adjust this just a little bit, but what we can do with that is I'm pretty much going to drop 1 stone. Why is the B-spline with the V trying to hit the top of the line instead of the center? So what? Oh, where did my design just go? So here, when I was tracing this, were you talking about the B-spline grabbing like the top or middle of the line? Yeah. So what was happening there is when you have, let me just go back a few. When you have your B-spline like this, because this is an object, and you have the B-spline, it will try to find those like it'll find like the edges of this object and try to grab them. So it just naturally wants to grab those. So usually one way, and it might just be under snap to objects, you can take that off. So under view, snap to, you see how I have object selected. So if you don't like that, see now it's not trying to do that. So if it's easier to take that off, now it's not, you can see how it's not like snapping to any of those edges like that. So if that's easier, you can leave it like that way too. All right, no problem. All right, so with our design here now, to fill this inside, you can grab about 3 stones like that. And I'm just pretty much placing it one in the center and then using the respace. And because of where I adjusted this line for the glitter one, it's a little bit off, but just nudge those real quick to fix it. So again, it's just dropping one in the center of those two. It doesn't have to be perfect, but just pretty much in the center. I'll just manually drop this last one. So this is going to save us, I meant for that to be a second color. Go back and edit that. So that's going to save us the time from when we had like the smart fill and we were trying to fill it. Once we have these outlines or these lines already set up, now we're just going to select them. And just drop our stones just like this. Oh. Keep forgetting to change the color. Now when we get to parts like this, we'll just kind of manually fill these up. So I just kind of drop a stone maybe in the corners, maybe a little lower, and just kind of start seeing how this will fill. And remember, when we have like a slight overlap like this onto the orange onto the black, that's fine. What we don't want to run into is more like we had here, where these two orange are overlapping that way. We would go in and fix this before we were finished. So I can drop one in here and then just kind of work my way out of that corner. And then if it's easier from there, I can just kind of fill a few using the respace. And we had a question about the fill between two. In this case, we typically don't want to use the fill between two, because if I did, what's going to happen is it's going to go straight across instead of having that. That's why we're dropping one kind of in the middle of them. So if it's able to see that it's more of a rounded line. So when we use the respace, it fills that area a lot better. So I'd probably just something like that. And again, if we have to nudge a stone or two, that's fine. So we pretty much just continue this all the way through. But this is one way, once you kind of have the outside of an object filled, you can easily do this instead of, sometimes we'll see some people are, will think it's easier to take a design, smart fill all those areas. Now, if they're all the same size, it would be nice because then we could just go through and just like once we were done, we could rotate it and fit it in. But in this case, every time it's going to be a little bit different, and you're going to have to, it ends up being a lot harder because if we add stones on this line here, then you're trying to guess the place and fill, because normally we would do like an inside fill, you do auto add stones, contour or corner detect, but we don't know where those stones are going to be on this line, so it's a lot harder to figure that out beforehand instead of when we have them already laid out like this. Now we're just laying them down, pretty much lining 3 up on each side, putting a middle point, selecting the first point, the second, the third, respace, and it'll hold that line really nicely. So just dropping a stone in the middle, respace, stone in the middle, respace, just like that. And now all these lines, if I want to clear them all at once, I just select them all, hold shift, clear path, and then it'll get rid of all those extra lines for me. We'd have to probably clean this one up just a tad. It's a little bit off with just the rows, but something like that. So when we get into these smaller pieces, sometimes I'll just lay one out and then just kind of figure it out like that. Why would you hold shift? Couldn't you just hit clear path? So when we create a row of stones, like using the edit, the fill between two, or we use like the plates and fill, we do a path, island, hatch, offset. In those cases, we don't have to hold shift. When we do one like this, where we're, grab a stone, when we might have, let's do 2, 3, and then I'll do 1, 2, 3 on this side. So when we have our rows like this, when we create our paths this way, using the respace, if you were just to highlight that and hit clear path, it's not going to get rid of that line. So this is the one case where we'll hold shift and clear path and it will get rid of it. Or that line that we just created there, you can literally just click on it and hit delete. So in this case, when we use the respace, that's pretty much the only time you would use that shift and clear paths. And it's just easier, if it's easier to delete them after you place them, you can. Or like if you're just kind of going on a roll, it might be easier just to delete them once you get a chunk done. Again, and I'm just going to kind of manually place this one. these ones down here, just a manual place. Perfect. So highlight that section, clear my paths. And then what I did just to add something a little bit different, weird how it edges off. With the beast mode, I just kind of grabbed, let's change all this to, change this part to black. And then what I did is I just held shift to grab multiple stones at once. No certain pattern or anything like that, just kind of grabbed a few of them here and there. And then I just threw some orange in there like that. So that's just something, you know, extra we can do with the rhinestones once we have that done. Just add something a little bit different to it. Can you explain what the offset fill does again? So the offset's not necessarily, it's not exactly like the path or hatch or island or hatch fill where it like it's closer to a path fill. So if you just have like a single line, if you do an offset, let's say 3 rows, it's gonna follow the curve really nicely, and you might have different amounts of stones on each curve to make sure it follows that curve a lot nicer. If you do an outside fill, just go to the other side of that line. Oh, there it goes. Just give this a second to load back up. So the last part with our design here, since I already kind of have it on this one, we'll just use this example here. So the last thing we can do, if we wanted to continuously fill like the face and bottom part here, I'll show you like with the face, but it'll be the same thing. And I don't think it necessarily looks that good this way, but if you wanted to, you know, change it around or edit anything like that, we can adjust this circle. And I'll just bring this in just a tad here. And the better you have this lined up in this case, the better the fill will be. So I'm just going to edit just a tad, and that looks pretty good there. But I want it to the inside of this row. I can go to my place and fill, inside, add stones, auto, auto, island fill. And those are, we'll just make them pink, that's fine for now. Clear my paths and move all those to the back. So now you can see the pink stones are on top of the orange here, or on the bottom. Let's go ahead and get that circle out of there. So now I can just highlight that section. I want my eyes and nose and mouth and everything to stay there. So if I select the bottom stones to be marked red, it'll get rid of any pink stones behind it overlapping. So I can grab those, and let's make these a different color now so we can see them. So if I have that as my fill now, what I would have to do to kind of fix this area is little things like this. I can just drop a stone, like little ones like that touching. Again, that's cool. That's okay. But here, I could just move a stone over down here and down to this point, down to this point. And then I'm just going to kind of go around quickly, respace that, add a stone if needed. So on the next line, let's get rid of that so I don't accidentally grab it. Respace, add a stone if needed. Here I'm just going to drop a couple stones. So we're just pretty much just manually editing all these extra stones around it now. Sometimes, like stuff like that, there's just going to naturally be a gap because there's really not much we can add in there unless we want to get into like sixes and stuff like that. But otherwise, we're just going to kind of nudge these a bit, move the stones over to the starting place, and then just grab a few, respace, add one in there if needed. And then that's how we can kind of quickly fill some of the areas like this. Maybe even manually move that one just a tad over. Respace this way. Yeah, I don't, sometimes like with the design like this, I think it actually takes away from it. But just for a quick reference, so something like that. Again, we're gonna have some openings. We can probably clean this up just a little bit more, but just for time, you'll have the completed one if you want. But then we have it set up where it's a full fill like that now. Let's go ahead and make those crystal, dark orange. Put our mock-ups. And again, this is kind of size for a kid, so we can make this shirt a little bit smaller. But that would be kind of our finished design. But again, I personally like it kind of like this style the best. Yeah, I think someone mentioned it being a little over bling that way. I agree. But this way here, you still get a nice two color look. And I think the face is a little bit more legible. How big is the overall design? It is just over 5 inches wide and 8.21 inches tall. But now, again, with this, line we made, now we can use this for any type of design. So I'm going to add a little circle around his head here. And take our text, put that to the side. And now this pretty much can become a live template too. And you can edit that text to say whatever you wanted now. So if we wanted this design to be kind of a live template, multi-deck, that's how we can quickly just add some text around it too. Instead of having the bling or the text underneath it with the bling, I could put the text underneath it here with the text. I could have it going around the side of the head, anything like that. Are there different colors of baby bling? So the baby bling is pretty much just using holographic material, or you could use glitter and cutting a rhinestone design in that holographic or glitter color. So there are, whatever color holographic and glitter vinyl there is. Or you can use adhesive and foil. So yeah, all it is, you can use any type of like vinyl, HTV. It's just you're literally just instead of loading Magic Flock into your cutter, you're just using the HTV instead. And it's an easy weed because there's no little parts that you have to like go in and tweeze out or anything like that. It just all the circles are left behind. So yeah, if you wanted this design in a baby bling, now you could just literally take, let's break apart that, all that we could weld together as one, and whatever glitter colors we wanted to use. We could set that up however we wanted. So that could be, a glitter design just like that. So our last design, where did it go? Guess I didn't save it there. Let's see if I have it here real quick. There we go. All right, so we had a question about kind of going the opposite to rhinestone to vector. So the best way to do that is pretty much, again, just using the B-spline, and possibly, sometimes you'll see we'll use the B-spline, but we might use like the pen thickness on some of the areas and stuff too. We might trace the entire outside, but it does take a little bit of extra time. And this is one of the cases where when we went to view and snap, right now we have object selected. This is where it's hard to do that, because if you try to take a B-spline and trace around your object, it wants to find certain pieces or those edges of the circle that it might try to snap to. So your lines might not look as smooth. So if you go to View, Snap To, and uncheck Objects, that should help tracing any type of rhinestone design. All right, but we'll pretty much just start with the outside. And again, just to get nice clean cut lines, we're going to hold V in those sharp areas like that. In there. In there. So it's V as in vector. You're just holding that just when you want, right before. So I'm holding it now, left clicking and letting go, and then just continues. So right before you get to that corner, you're going to hold V, left click, and that's going to give you a nice, clean, sharp angle like that. So that's pretty much our outside now. So I can make that a full object so you can see it, and then I'm just going to move it to the back. So now the same thing with our inside cavities. Hold V. And this is one of those instances where you kind of want to follow your own line too. So that's my line here. If I start it just to follow these rhinestones, it might not look as clean. So instead I'm going to start back here just a little bit more and try to follow the line above it just to get a nice thickness, and so it doesn't look like off center or anything like that. So with those two lines I just made, because it's pretty symmetrical, I can then take that, mirror it, flip the wrong way, and then I'm just going to rotate it just a little bit that way. Yeah, disabling that snap to when you're tracing anything like this is going to make it a lot easier, so it doesn't try to grab all those other objects. Alright, so those are placed there now. Those look good. Grab our B-spline. Come and trace this inside here. So in this design, we're doing the opposite. So we're going from a rhinestone to a vector design. And even, let's say you have a really large rhinestone design, you can resize it at this point, because once it's a vector, it doesn't really matter their overall size. So instead of tracing like a 12 by 12 design really large on your screen, you can bring it down so it's a little bit smaller of a trace. So now with the B-spline up top, we're just gonna, I start inside the back trace, and then we'll just kind of curve that around just like that. And I'm gonna purposely kind of curve the bottom even more so it tries to fill that area up a little bit. Same thing on this side. Kind of follow that around. Then once we get to this part, I go around just a few, just kind of a little bit extra. So when we do increase the thickness of that line, it hopefully makes it a little bit thicker in that area. All right, so now I grab both of my top pieces right there, and we're just going to start making the thickness a little bit bigger until we kind of match the size we want. Looks pretty good. So you can see on this side it looks a little bit better than that way it turned out, but that's a pretty good thickness there. So convert. So right now, this is a good another example of converting an outline to an object. So right now, those red lines, they look thick, but if you go to the wireframe, it just shows that thin line. So by clicking this button here, it converts it to an actual object rather than just that line. But if you convert that to curves, it wouldn't actually make it the thickness that we saw. So I'm just going to weld that to the black piece in the back. And then we have our B-spline coming off the back side here. And we'll just make that a little bit thicker too. Alright, so now I'm going to get rid, select my rhinestone design, just kind of pull that away. So now my pieces here, we can turn those white, and then we have those pieces here that we could just turn yellow, and then we have our line behind it. We might need to skew it or bring it down just a little so it doesn't interfere with our part there. I'm just going to shape how this comes into the tail a little bit just so it lines up a little bit better. And then just make that an object itself too. And then just at the top, we're going to grab our smooth tool and we're just going to smooth out this top area. Let's make this a little bit bigger. We'll speed up the rate a little bit too. And that's just going to smooth out these edges. So any part like this, we might have to, just kind of go around and just, by deleting some nodes, we might be able to smooth out some of those. When we're tracing again, around the stones like that, you might get a little bit more bumpier than you intended, but we can still go back and, edit any parts of those nodes that we drop. So everything else looks pretty clean. But this will, just by deleting some of the nodes around the edges, that just smooths it all up for us. I'm not too worried about like the antennas or whatever for these, but we will come in here and close any of that out if necessary. But that's how we can go from, again, most of the time we probably won't be using that or probably going from rhinestones to vector, but if you have like a nice rhinestone design that you ever want to try to trace, that's a good way to do it, just using the B-spline or well, it's still the B-spline, but then just kind of thickening up some of those lines too. Awesome. All right, so any questions on any of the designs from today? So we had a question about some of the overlaps. So with this part here, I already pre-welded it, but there shouldn't, when we were making like the antennas and stuff like that, it's big that we just, you know, let me make another one real quick. So when we, like, let's say you had a third one here or anything. What I always like to do just to make sure I don't have like any bad overlaps is I'll start, you can see how the line's already overlapping my piece here. So if we made this thicker, you can see how it's already overlapping this piece. So I always try to make sure it's overlapping. If it's like off just a little bit, you know, anything like that, that's where you might run into like nodes not touching. And then it becomes like, let's say I think they're touching, but they're not. And then I go to weld these two pieces together. Then it's me trying to like overlap these pieces, highlight part of my design, click weld, and that can fix the issue. So that might be one way to do it. But I always like to try to just make sure. Yeah, so it was overlapping, but it didn't clear the inside. If you want to send us just a quick video or picture of it with that too, I can take a look at it just to see if it's, you know, maybe something else. Yeah, no problem. I've forgotten how to duplicate stone, add one stone at a time. So when we're adding one stone at a time to a design, you're going to left click and drag. So once you kind of left click and drag this wherever you want, let's say I want to make the copy up top here or over on this side. I'm still, the entire time I'm doing a left click and hold or drag, whatever you want to call it. During that, you're going to right click and like the right click is just a right click and release. So once I right click and release it, you'll see again, I haven't let go of the left side of the mouse yet. So I'm still dragging this around. You can see that little box with the plus now. So that means this is copied, and wherever I drop it, it would add that copy. So again, I'm going to left click and hold. While I'm still left clicking and holding, I'm going to right click release. That will add the plus sign, and then I can just drop. Another way, if that's, it's a little bit hard to explain like without or not in person, but if you hit the space key, it will also make a copy. So you can left click and drag. When you hit the space key and release, it'll make a copy that way. So if the space is easier, you can do it that way too. And again, the closer you are zoomed in, the smaller movements you can get. So sometimes if you're like way zoomed out, but you're trying to get little adjustments maybe into this corner, you'll have to kind of zoom in more, and then you can get smaller movements. Can you help me for the live template volume 2? Yes, let's pull that up real quick. Okay. Let's go to designs, full packs. Okay, so live. Oh, that's why it's live template volume 2. So I think we were typing live templates. For some reason, it's just live template volume 2. General question: can you demonstrate how you cut out an arc through a word, or do it Wednesday or Thursday? So what do you mean cut out an arc through a word? So let's say, type in. So are you saying like if you just had a normal text like this and you wanted like an arc through it? Or So let me see if this is what you mean. So, like, are you trying to just draw a circle through it, possibly? Maybe if we make this a little bit thicker. So are you just trying to have it almost cut out like that, but have the shirt show through that area? Okay. So yeah, with that, all you'd have to do is right now, again, that's just the line thickness of this circle. So once you had the thickness that you wanted with your arc, so if you wanted this like thicker, you could type, 50 in there. Convert that to an object, and then just select this object, hold shift, select the text, back minus front, and now, like, if you put a background on this, like, your shirt would show through that area. Yeah, no problem. If it was something else, just shoot us a message, and I can get more into detail if necessary. But if that's it, then yeah, that's just make sure that circle when you make the thickness is converted to an object, and then you'll be good to go. And if you don't want it, if you don't want it that thick, you can always, if you had this thinner, what you could do too, like if you had something like thick like or thinner like that, but you wanted this side a different color, that's when you can come back with like the smart fill. This line's not on top of these ones, that's why. So then I could take all the red and then have that pretty much a second color. So we'd weld all that together. Convert that, subtract it through, and then you could have something like that if you wanted to. So it just depends how you want it. Like if you want that arc just pulled through it all in one color, or you could use the smart fill to, like if it was kind of like a similar color or something to kind of give it more of like a gradient look like that, you could do it that way too. All right, no problem, guys. All right, well, thank you so much for coming tonight. We have the live going on as well. That's cameo giveaway. We have some new packs coming out. So definitely check that out. You can get the reminder. We're gonna push an email out, I'm sure, in the next couple hours. You'll see it that way. You can go to our YouTube channel and see the reminder there. And I believe it's on the main site when you first go onto it as well. So any other questions, feel free to give us a call, 941-755-1696 or 1696, or shoot us an email at info@theryanstoneworld.com. Thank you guys so much. If there's anything like we're missing or you guys want to see more of, please just shoot us an email, let us know. We'll be happy to include it in these training sessions. All right, guys. I'll see you guys Wednesday. Tomorrow training again, 6 to 8. Wednesday 6 to 8. Thursday 6 to 8. And then Friday we'll do 1 to 3. Replay from Friday. I got 2 questions now about the files from last week. They should have been uploaded. If they're not, I'll go check right after this, and I'll make sure they're uploaded in the next like 30 minutes. But I thought they should have been, but it might have not saved correctly or something like that. So I'll go through, make sure. Friday wasn't up. Okay, So it looks like Fridays isn't up. I'll go make sure it's up, and get the files up there. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. Yeah, and this one we'll have it ready before tomorrow's sections for this one. The files either. Okay, I'll make sure they're both up right after this. Thanks, guys.